Hello students, this is fourth part of my lecture on types of editorials. All right, so we have already discussed the example related to the Imagine With Me structure. I showed you the editorial titled PFUJ at 70, which was published in Dawn in the third part of my lecture. Let's see what we have on the next slide. All right, this is another type of editorial which is known as the question structure. This type of editorial to me is quite interesting in the sense that the writer actually asks a question. He can ask question either in the beginning of his write-up or toward the end of his writing. Both, he can ask questions either way. This is what I have written here. Let me maximize the screen. The question may come in the beginning or it may come in the end. And what's the purpose here? The purpose is to draw readers' attention toward a serious issue that needs answer. Many times it happens that the writer asks the questions and he doesn't answer it himself. He actually lets readers think about it. The purpose is to tell them, okay, this is a question that exists among us, and that the answer to this question should be addressed. I can give you an example of an editorial that I read in Dawn newspaper a couple years ago. It was hard for me to find an example. I went over maybe 100 editorials when I was preparing for this lecture, and I couldn't find an example that was pertinent to this particular type of editorial. However, I can give you an example from my experience. So I'm giving you an example of an editorial that I read in Dawn newspaper about 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago. The editorial was published in the aftermath of Zainab case, which was a child sexual assault case that happened in the city of Kasur. And soon after that editorial, there was a debate which was happening, especially on social media, which was about public hanging of the culprit. And there were people who were demanding that whoever is responsible for such heinous crime should be hanged publicly. And Don wrote an editorial where he raised a question. The writer raised a question, and the newspaper said that this is if yes, this is what has happened is horrible. It has shaken the whole nation. We agree to that, but can state really be a spectator to public hanging? Uh, state The writer, of course, asked a question, and there was a question mark at the end of the sentence. And then the writer further explained that it will be like that we are okay, there is this incident that has happened, and then we are, by publicly hanging the culprit, the state is like a silent spectator to a brutal activity. And then the writer further wrote that this will give rise to already existing aggressive attitudes of people in Pakistan. What I'm saying is that the writer asked a question. In this situation, the writer asked a question. He preferred not to answer it, but with that, he gave a little bit further explanation. And the purpose was to provoke people to think about another side of the picture that apparently people were not considering. Here I have given you the example to explain the question structure. This is another type of editorial, and this is quite interesting in the sense that the writer gives the impression that, okay, here's the situation, here is the problem, and see, we are together in this, and together we need to think about it. And you see, in contrast to the you approach that I discussed earlier, here the approach is us. The writer kind of gives a collective sort of impression, and he says that here is the situation, we are facing this together, and this is what we can do to find answers to our problems. And this here I want to give you an example of an editorial which was published on child abuse in Pakistan. It is the same example that I have just discussed with you. In the wake of Zainab case, Zainab murder case, Zainab sexual assault case in Pakistan, the writer in that in the editorial, there was another editorial, and I want to tell you that the magnitude of the event was, uh, Zainab case was really big. Like I said earlier, that the incident shook the whole nation, and people started talking about changes in our legislation, and people were talking about making some amendments in already existing laws related to sexual assault and rape cases. In the wake of that incident, many newspapers wrote many editorials, and of course Dawn also wrote multiple editorials. In another editorial, Dawn mentioned, the writer of the editorial mentioned that there is, I mean, we have seen many cases that are being reported related to children's sexual assault, and there are still many unreported cases. The situation is worse. The situation which is reported to us, the actual situation is worse in comparison to the situation that is reported to us. And then the writer said that we are together in this. I mean, these were not, of course, his exact words, but this was the sense that he was saying. And he actually encouraged the government to go for a proper legislation to deal with such kind of cases in future. All right. Here you can see some more types of editorials. Again, I did an extensive research when I was preparing these lectures. It is really, really hard to find examples related to the editorials. Uh, like I went over a number of editorials, but again, it was hard to find the particular example that I was looking for. I highly encourage that you read the notes that I have shared with you, because related to each type, there is a clear example given in the notes. With that, I also encourage you to read some more editorials. Keep reading editorials. I already encourage you to read editorials in different activities that we had in class. I'll encourage you one more time to keep reading editorials to enhance your understanding. All right. In some more editorials, you see there is the shock approach. When I upload these recorded lectures on Moodle, I'll upload an editorial as well. Its title is Maternal Morality Rate. Yeah, maternal mortality rate. That's the title of the editorial. So please read that editorial closely, because that gives facts and figures related to uh, uh, mortality rate in Pakistan, and then the tone of the editorial is like as though the writer is shocked, and the writer is shocked to express that this is the situation of maternal mortality rate in Pakistan. The next type that you see on the screen is maintain your writing momentum. Now, this is a kind of editorial where the writer, yes, he begins with a catchy sentence or a shocking intro where he's giving facts and figures that, okay, um, this is the situation related to, let's say, uh, uh, sexual assault cases, or let's say maternal mortality rates. And then he actually writes in a way that uh, he lets his readers draw toward a conclusion, and that is how he kind of maintains a momentum in your writing. I'll explain again, I'll repeat what I have said. The writer begins with a catchy phrase or a shocking phrase, and then he lets his writing stumble toward a conclusion. He lets his writing go toward a way, toward a style where his reader himself can kind of predict, okay, what is the conclusion. Then the next style is the dramatic quote. The writer either can begin with a dramatic quote in an editorial, or he can conclude his editorial, he can finish his writing with a dramatic quote. In either ways, for the former, the purpose is to grab readers' attention. For the latter, the purpose is to to leave an impression on the reader. So it is again a very common style of editorial writing. In my research, I couldn't find an example, but in order to find an example, I suggest that you read the notes that I have provided you. Then comes the early warning style. Uh, the early warning style is again close to the shock approach, in the sense that the reader actually gives uh, 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 facts and figures, and then he kind of alarms readers about some upcoming consequences. I can give you an example of an editorial that I read in newspaper a few years ago, and the editorial was about the situation of water. Water. Pakistan is one of the water-stressed country. Very soon we will run out of water in the country. Pakistan very soon will run dry. This is what many experts and analysts are saying, because uh, uh, our water resources are not enough. They are not sufficient to provide clean drinking water to its masses. So the writer talked about the situation of the scarcity of water, fresh, clean water in Pakistan. And then he said that in coming years, maybe by 2024 or by 2025, Pakistan will run dry. This is an alarming situation. The government should take measures of maybe constructing dams, or maybe constructing some man-made water reservoirs to conserve water. The last type that you see on editorial is leave them laughing. Leave them laughing, of course. These are kind of humorous sort of editorials. The writer talks about serious issues in a light tone, in a light way, in a comic and hilarious way. Although the content sounds hilarious, the content sounds humorous, the message inside is very serious. The purpose is to talk about serious issues in a light, entertaining way. Again, it is hard to find examples related to such editorials. And to be honest, in my experience, I mean, I told you that I have been reading editorials for a really, really long time. Uh, in Pakistani newspapers, I haven't ever found any example related to this type. But I do have the experience of reading such editorial in the New York Times once. The New York Times once wrote an editorial soon after President Trump took office, and they were commenting on his policies, and especially on the ways he addresses journalists. He addresses journalists, he responds to journalists related to their questions on his policies. So Don was making fun of his ways of dealing with journalists. I do not remember the editorial exactly, but I do know that the way they wrote the editorial was like, it kind of created uh, 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 humor. All right, now with this, I'm going to finish my lectures related to the types of editorials. I repeat that please read the notes that I'll upload on Moodle with types, and please keep reading editorials to find examples related to the types of editorials that I have shared with you. All right, I'll stop the recording, and then I'll see you in the virtual session. Before I end the recording, I want to tell you that for our class on Friday, I will upload an activity. You will work on an activity at home, and I'll upload the details of that activity within a day. All right, thank you.